Hi, this is Tony Hawk.
Welcome to Leipzig.
For the Games Convention 2007.
You're watching
Gamereactor.
Gamereactor
TV.
General, we cannot let the Russians secure Paris or the rest of Europe will fall. Destroy those Russian positions at any cost. Is that clear?
When you started out making EndWar, what was the main thing that you wanted to achieve?
The thing we really wanted to do is we wanted to create strategy on consoles. So the first thing that we did before we even did the first line of the design or whatever was we stepped back and we looked at not strategy games, but we looked at what are the strategic elements, what are the strategic features in console games. And in particular, there were two things that we kind of learned a lot from. One was RPG games. So, you know, traditionally on the PC, RPGs were top-down, 2D, point-and-click sort of interfaces and experiences, very, very similar to RTS games in a way. And then there was a real revolution in that genre with Knights of the Old Republic. So what BioWare did when they went from kind of Neverwinter Nights to Knights of the Old Republic was to bring the camera down, to make it third person, and to basically the key innovation of that game in a way was the camera and was the third person camera. And also we'd seen Full Spectrum Warrior, of course, so you know the first thing we thought was we've got to have a third person camera, we've got to put you on the field, we've got to give you that soldier's eye view of the battlefield. It was really critical. And of course the fact that it was next gen means we had higher resolution so we could get more detail, and widescreen so you can have a bigger field of view. So your ability to do that on X360 PS3 to make this type of game is much better than it would have been on the previous generations. Then the other games we looked really closely at were sports games because they managed to blend elements of strategy, so team management, high-level strategy, objectives in American football, calling plays, with the tactical, with the directing the control of one player, on the field, but at the same time, you might have 12 players on the field, you're controlling one, but still the whole game takes place. So that ability those two things really went together, that sort of third-person point of view and that ability you have in sports games to control the whole sort of game, from the point of view of that one character. And then we really designed from the ground up with that in mind. So it was kind of sort of like an EA Sports Battlefield, basically.
Something that I noticed when you played the game is how fast you were able to control your units with the voice commands. And I mean, thinking about it, it's like once you move away from pointing, clicking, choosing there's got to be no turning back. I mean, that's got to be so much faster. So how's that been, and how did you think about designing that?
Yeah, actually, one of the things we knew we wanted to do from the beginning, we had this idea of strategy at the speed of thought. And what we meant was that it's still going to be, a fairly action-packed sort of game, intense, but the speed of it is how fast can you think and make decisions and make important decisions. We just really wanted to get away from the traditional RTS where you see guys and it's just a blur of fingers on the keyboard, and unless you've mastered every shortcut, every tech tree path, you're never going to win. So we knew we wanted the pace of the game to be the pace of the really cool decisions you make in the game, and a big way to achieving that was the voice command, because that does two things. One, it taps you in. As soon as you think of an order, you can give the order and it'll be followed by your troops. And two, it liberates you, it frees you from having to move your camera and move your point of view to the exact spot where you want to give an order. So, your guys might be in the northeast sector of the battlefield, you might be in the southwest, but you can still manage every area of the battlefield, and those two things in combination, as I say, sort of strategy at the speed of thought. And I really agree, there's no way anyone's going to go back from that. You'd never innovate in the other direction. You'd never say, okay, now you have to go and fly over there, now you have to do this complicated structure of orders. And the other thing that made that possible, one was the voice command, The other thing is the AI. In order to be able to have voice command work as a way to play the game, the soldiers have to be intelligent enough to follow your orders at quite a high level. So, you know, red team, attack alpha doesn't just mean sort of, you know, click on it in a blob. Like in a traditional RTS, what you'd have to do is sort of click there and then micromanage the actions of every individual one of those guys. We don't have that layer of gameplay, that layer of micromanagement. Once you've said attack alpha, they'll use the terrain, they'll take cover in the right positions, they'll line up in the right squad formations and so on. So we don't have that micromanagement layers. Yeah, choosing the right units to do the right task. It really breaks into the three. It's the right unit to take out the right enemy unit, just like on a real battlefield. You know, attack helicopters are built as tank hunters, heavy infantrymen in cover can take out tanks. So it's using the right units, it's using the terrain, especially for line of sight, because we have real line of sight on the terrain, so you can hide in valleys, hide behind buildings. Using the cover and also using flanking. So all the units have separate armour for the sides, rear, top, and then also the morale. So, you know, you can break your enemy and make him run instead of having to kill, you know, every guy. There's a number of things that'll, you know, affect how well they fight or suppress them. They don't like getting flanked. You know, all the things that you'd imagine, I guess, realistically on a battlefield. You're not going to like getting hit from the flank. You're not going to like getting attacked by someone who's clearly superior that you can't damage. You know, if you're standing in the open and a tank's coming at you, it's not a good feeling. You're going to want to run and find cover. Getting outnumbered, seeing your own troops, you know, seeing your own guys get killed. And even some weapons, maybe you're in cover, artillery, like massive explosions, you might be well enough protected, it's not going to damage you, but it's still going to scare the shit out of you, basically. So, and then when you get suppressed, you know, when your morale's down, your ability to fight, so your rate of fire, how aggressive you can be in combat gets reduced. So you can use the morale to suppress your enemy and then finish them. We want it to really be like a real tactical war game. One of the things we wanted to get away from is, you know, very often the last part of a strategy game in particular is the most boring part, because, you know, you've
Cleaning up.
Yeah, you've won already, I know I've lost, and we spend, you know, 5 minutes or whatever just cleaning up. And we wanted to come up with a way to make the last phase of the battle, you know, the climax of the battle, a really fun stage as well. So what we did is we sort of said, you know, when things get really desperate, when it's do or die right at the end, that's when people can pull out all the stops, use any weapon. So that's when we enable you to use the really big weapons of mass destruction. It's also when we unlock some other special abilities, so you can have like a last stand for your troops, so they'll fight to the death. They'll fight better, but they'll lose the ability to sort of run away and flee off the battlefield and so on. And the other thing it does, by unlocking those weapons, it always gives you a chance. Right up to the death, there always can be a way that you can turn the tide of the battle.